I love having you here, Crystal. And I've actually been
Hi.
waiting all weekend. I was at a family reunion this past weekend. My brother-in-law was proposing to his girlfriend. So that was really fun.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, to
But I
them.
have been waiting to get with you because you made a comment a couple of weeks ago about um, mental bullying yourself. Was that the right
Hmm.
phrase?
Yes,
Okay. And I wanted to hear more from you about that.
absolutely. So what I will say is that we all have that little inner dialogue, whether we tune into it, whether we think it's our own voice. Some people I've heard hear like whispers and little comments here and there. We have to realize that a lot of what we're hearing is subconsciously pre-programmed into us as children and through relationships and people and just circumstances. And maybe it's not the nicest things. And so we have that on auto loop. And what that does to you is basically it kind of becomes your little bully. It's like
Hmm.
as a way to protect you, as a way to kind of guide. I'm sorry, give me one second. She's being chaotic. She's a diva. But yeah, essentially, so the mentally bullying thing kind of like it could take a really big toll on you, especially when you're listening to that voice all day long. And I've noticed that it starts off as a whisper, basically telling you, oh, don't, you shouldn't do that, right? It starts as simple as that, like, oh, don't do that, don't go for that job, you're not qualified, and it just breathes down your neck to stop yourself from having experiences. And I think it stems from our parents because I know that me specifically have parents that instead of using positive reinforcement to guide and navigate me, they would use fear as a tactic to stop lots of things. And if they meant well, they meant well, but it kind of did the opposite to me, kind of made me more fearful of like everything. And I would notice that I would bully myself. I would bully myself into why would this person pick me? Or why do I think I'm qualified to be a hairstylist? What makes me this? Or, whatever, like all of the other things that I want kind of like try to achieve. Took me longer to get there than necessary. And it was specifically because of that. It was because of the mental bullying. It was because of the constant voice. Um,
Would
you'll
you
notice
say
that that'll happen.
Question,
Go
would
ahead. I'm
would you
sorry.
say that it's kind of like a form of that come because I'm sure some people might be like, well, how do I know if I'm like mental bullying myself or what does that look like? Because it sounds like it could be taken in a form of constantly second guessing yourself, coming from a place of not feeling good enough about something. Would you say that sounds about right?
Could be. There's different forms. I know that there are people who, for example, if you're going for some big accolade and you know that you are qualified, but that little tiny feeling of fear kicks in that you're like, I don't know why I feel like I'm excited for this, but this might not be mine. That's the indication that you have a subconscious belief that's bullying you. And then you'll see that could turn out to different ways. Either kind of you kind of either learn to navigate past it or you get in that freeze mode where you're like, well, no, you're right. I can't do this, or what if this is a possibility that this can happen or that can happen? And I can, from experience, I've done it to myself way too many times. And it always starts as a little, like I said, that little whisper. It's like, but that little but, forget it. That's like the indication. That's like you're at the wire fence, like ready to
Hmm.
touch it. It's electric. And I've noticed that 90% of people do battle with this. Like even if I can tell people that, um, for example, I'll use an example of mine. I help coach people, and sometimes I'm like, I don't really see that you have like a resistance, but the fact that you pause, or I can see like a little, like you take in the back when you say that you want certain things, it's because there's a belief surrounding it. Somebody somewhere indicated that it wasn't possible for them. So then your little inner child is like, or your adult child or whatever adult inside you is like, you can't do that. If they couldn't do it, why couldn't, like why would I, like,
So it's
kind of like second guessing to stuff.
kind of like we are receiving, it's kind of like we're receiving other people's projections and then we just receive it and internalize it for ourselves, even though like their own projections or their own issues or belief systems or whatever, that's on them. But when they're
Yes.
saying, oh, well, that can't be done, or, oh, you want to start a new business? Well, most businesses fail. I tried and I failed. So if it didn't work for me, it's not going to work for you. Like, you shouldn't even bother. And then you kind of just fall into the same thought patterns that other people have for their
Yeah.
own selves. So I guess there's like multiple ways of, is it
Yes,
like
and
a self
especially
sabotage?
I think what ends up happening is that some people are really sensitive to other people's energies and frequencies, and they're
Hmm.
naturally absorbers.
Okay.
And
I can see that.
that was my issue for a long time. I didn't know how to self-regulate. And so I would pick up other people's fears and make them my fear, even though I never had a fear of those things to begin with. And it really would turn into things like, well, they went through this. Even if it wasn't my own experience, I would still project that fear back onto myself, absorbing their fear. Like in the
Okay.
midst even of healing other people, I would even do that. So I had to learn the balance of to when to like tell my brain, like, remember that this person has limiting beliefs, or remember this person has traumas and they're overcoming them. They're not your trauma. I have to remind myself sometimes because I could get really emotionally attached to people because I love so like so deeply. And it's the people who really, really deeply love, I find like they are the ones that like attach themselves to everybody's storyline. And have you ever seen those people where random things will happen to them consistently? And you're like, girl, why?
That
They are
sounds
absorbers.
empaths, I would imagine. Probably because I was an empath. I was a really, really, really rough empath. I was a really rough empath to the point where I could watch movies, and I'm still more mindful of what I watch now, but I could watch movies and I wouldn't watch anything that was like extremely violent. I couldn't watch, stuff about like people getting raped or, beaten or certain things because I would either have dreams about it later or I would feel it happening. Like if somebody's getting stabbed and it's showing it, and then I would be feeling like somebody is physically stabbing me. And then I couldn't figure out, like, geez, like I'm super sensitive to this stuff. It's like some kind of
Yeah.
hypersensitivity or whatever. But that a lot of empaths kind of have that. So when somebody is
Mm-hmm.
having their feelings, their emotions, when you're super sensitive to other people's feelings and thought patterns, I guess people don't take it that step further and say, you know what? You may be sensitive or you may feel bad for certain situations, but at the same time, you could also be taking in some of those feelings and emotions, not
Yes.
realizing you're internalizing it in your own mind and becoming those things or living out those things, and then wondering why you can't get past certain points in your life when
Mm-hmm.
you're treating it the same way that other people have that had nothing to do with you whatsoever. I mean, that could be a very
Absolutely.
dangerous place.
Absolutely. And that's another thing as well. It's like, no, mommy, give me that. I'm so sorry. My daughter is driving me a little crazy today because she wants my attention. Her brother wasn't home all day. It's the
Mm,
first day of school. And she's like, I want to be in your presence. I'm like, girl, you've been with me all day. Um, but also what I've noticed, and to piggyback off that, is when you are an empath, you have naturally healing auras that
say
will
that again. You have
attract
naturally
people.
hearing what?
Healing auras, meaning like you have like a, I want to say your spirit has healing energies to it. So
Okay.
naturally, if you're a person that attracts a lot of people who have um, mental health issues or emotional health issues, if you notice like you're having a lot of those type of people gravitating towards you, and you don't understand why, it's probably because you have a purpose around healing other people.
Hmm.
That's your biggest purpose. And that's gonna be your top purpose. You're gonna continuously drag people to your center, to your space. And it's really meant to teach you how to balance yourself, to ground yourself so that you're not wobbling all over the place in emotion and in spirit and energy when it comes to dealing with people like that. We also tend to attract a lot of narcissistic people that need to heal, and that was
Mm.
something that was a really strong belief system of mine for a long time. And so, of course, Neville's teaching, I was like, I only attract the people that are willing to do the work. I'm only attracting the people that are willing to, that need me. And when I'm gone, and I don't revisit back. And because we can, as a person who survived narcissistic abuse, through parents and then through relationships, I learned to every time that it entered a relationship of that sort or had a relationship dynamic, I noticed that I was only supposed to be there for a short amount of time. And I would always stay longer than I needed to. And that's when I was starting to become affected. That's when my emotional health will start to take a turn. And I'm a pretty healthy thinking person. Like I meditate, I do a lot of grounding work. I have my prayer. I'm very like focused and mentally strong. A lot of people are like, you're so mentally strong. I'm like, I am. But when I get around narcissistic people, um, this happens all the time to me. And I think it's because I have that relationship dynamic with my father specifically, and then with like my ex marriage and whatnot. You always feel like you can help them. You're gonna always feel like, oh, I could save them from this. I could save them because they do genuinely want it, but you're only placed there for a short period of time, and it's done on purpose that way. It's so that you could introduce them to healing and then get out. It's kind of like a swift thing. You're not supposed to anchor yourself in them because they also have that mental belief. They also have it, but theirs is way worse. And coming from experience, I noticed that they constantly battling. Somebody's in my, somebody's against me. I've got to get them before they get me mentality. They're
Yeah.
always in fight or flight. That is classic narcissistic. Like if you really want to take away all the terrible things that they do to others, it's because that mental bully is really strong. Really, like it's a full blown gang of bullies because they're
So
always constantly belittling themselves.
it's kind of like you have to be cautious not to overstay your energy exchange with people and being able to learn that time frame, because I imagine like all this can be really new to people, and it really, I feel like it takes it is a lifestyle change, of course, but it takes that time or that wisdom to kind of develop how much time you should be exchanging energies with people or being around people, or giving of your people. And that's something I've been really, really strong about these past couple of years is you can still love people, but that doesn't mean that they have all the access to you. You're giving them, there's people that are like in your inner circle, and then there are people in your outer circle. And for me, I'm like, everybody's in my outer circle until I decide who I'm going to let back closer, because I had to like reevaluate, everybody, even like family members, friends, everyone. And it sounds like you really have to develop that timing of, or discernment, I should
Yep.
say, who gets that long-term energy exchange, and who, like you said, you need to get in, do what you're meant to do in their life, or be that person that you're meant to be in their life just for that moment, and then just leave and just detach real quick. And I guess that's part of also why detachment is really, really strong and powerful. I tell you what.
Yes, it is such a strong. Let me tell you how you can literally stop the flow of blessings and the flow of abundance and the flow of money and the flow of love and the flow of just everything working out in your favor by holding on to yourself or holding on to the version where you're in a space that you don't even want to be.
Mm.
It's like pouring into a cup that doesn't have any more space. Like you need to remove that and get something bigger. You need to get out of that. You need to detach from that outcome, let it be, let it unfold. And I think when I was a super control freak, because I used to be a super control freak, I noticed that I had times where I didn't know when was the appropriate time to detach from something. And it would keep me longer in these places and spaces. And then I started to notice that it will affect my financial income. Like that was the first thing, that was the first indication to me that I was overstepping my stay in that, because then my work quality would go down. My clients would be all like chaotic. Like there would be
Mm.
multiple signs leading to me that's like, hey, check where you are vibrationally and where your attention is going to. 9 out of 10 times it was because I was still in my feelings about something that a narcissist did or said, or was little actions they were taking, because I wanted to be there at every beck and call and every step of the way of their healing. But sometimes I've noticed and I've come to the grace of knowing that you're there to teach them what they're supposed to learn. You're supposed to give them the grace that they don't give themselves. And then you're supposed to get the heck out of there. And the purpose of that is because, when you're planting any kind of seed, you hovering over it and watching it's not going to make it grow any faster.
Mm.
It's not. A gardener and even people who are in the fields planting these beautiful harvests, like they don't sit and watch them every day. They don't. And you don't need to be there to water it either. I had to learn that. You don't have to be
That's a
physically
strong one. Say that one
to
more
water.
time. You say you don't need to be there to watch it.
You don't need to be there to watch it, and you don't need to be there to water it.
That's a big one. And I think especially for women or really anybody that has that helpful mentality,
That
they want
loving,
to
caring,
be there to
nurturing.
the end.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah, you
man.
have to understand that you can. Because as a woman, we tend to like want to be the fixers and we want to be the nurturers and we want to be the caretakers. That's natural to us. That's natural within our femininity. But what we don't really grasp in our society because we have this hyper masculinity about us is that we are not the ones doing the work. Like our energy, our prayers, our intentions, they're enough. They reach. You know, when I got into Neville's teachings and they were teaching me about, or I was learning about the thought transmission and how basically what we think towards others, like they're thinking about us, right?
Mm.
In any dynamic. And I had to put this to the test because being in love with somebody that was extremely narcissistic and one sided, and I could understand why he became that way. I know that life made him that way. I don't hold any grudges or anything, but I know that because of this situation, I had poured enough love and enough kindness, and I did the sewing, you know, I did the gardening, but me being there and watching it only tore me apart because I was watching the seed break open. And then I was watching the seed break through the thing. And I was watching the process being frustrated. Like, why isn't it faster? Why isn't it the way that I want? Why? And it's like, I don't have the control over that. I have to release control and focus on something that does have a better payoff, which is myself. Loving myself, giving myself the attention I deserve, allowing myself to open up my heart to dating again or to even being in a relationship again, in a relationship that does truly serve me. And I think because I'm not used to that or I wasn't used to that, it was hard to detach from that because I was like, but what if I'm not here to see it? Like, it's going to be a tree, girl, chill. But it's not going to be a tree today. You have to allow it its space to grow into something. You did the work. If you don't trust that you've done the work and you've given the love and you've written enough, I think that really stems from you and feeling like you're not enough. People who want to overpour, it's because they have a feeling that they people pleased with their parents. It's like a relationship you develop with them that you have to do more. And if you don't show up more and you don't show up for the abuse and you don't show up for then you're not worthy of receiving this love. And that's such a toxic way to think about it because we're teaching ourselves that we only deserve love if it comes with pain. That's not true. That is
It
not
sounds like
true.
there's so
So
many different or similar, I should say. There's so many traits that are similar to the form of mental bullying, mental bullying yourself, I guess to say, because a lot of this stuff, first of all, they don't teach any of this stuff in school. They really, truly don't. They're not going to teach any self-development or mental health, how to, protect your mindset and things like that. They don't. And unfortunately, I think because a lot of our parents, they grew up in whatever phase of life that they didn't learn this stuff either. So all they could do is be,
right.
the best parents to us that they could with the information that they had. And then, but then we're still kind of left like now as adults saying, well, we got to figure this stuff out. And then we got to go out there and start doing the work and Googling and reading and watching and learning and all those things, which is good though, because like your kids now, I know that you practice this stuff a lot with your kids and it makes it that much easier to feel like you're stopping that pattern, that generational thing. Give me 1 second. I need to plug in my computer. I thought it was on. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I know like with dealing with like overcoming this whole thought of mental bullying and what it looks like, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we're receiving people's energy, not even realizing that we're taking in other people's, perceptions and beliefs and things like that. So when you're in it, what would you say is some of the easiest ways to like have a snapback game, or to come out of it, or to like stop it in its tracks. Because obviously when stuff happens, you don't want to be delusional to where you're like, you're not even addressing that it's there. You want to be at the point where you're like, oh, okay, well, this happened, but now let's go do better. Now let's fix this and let's resolve it, let's move forward, rather than just acting like it just doesn't exist. And because I know there's a lot of people that they kind of go on the whole that version of delusion side of it.
So I will say that there's two different ways that I do it for myself. Not depending on the severity of the situation. Um, I will use two different techniques. The one thing I will tell everybody to do first is learn breath work. That is going to stop you from pretty much being reactive. The person who was really reactive, when something would trigger me, I would go crazy. Like I would go all sorts of nuts. I would say whatever, I would react, I would go on social media, I would do all these things. And it took a lot of pausing and breath work for me to learn how to be like, okay, does this warrant a response? Or is this something that I kept telling myself? See, once you become conscious of your thoughts and your patterns of your thoughts, it's a little easier for you to pinpoint when you're seeing something in a 3D that's an old belief. Because the way it plays out is exactly how you're thinking it. And we don't even pay attention to the way we're thinking. So because we don't really take inventory about what we're thinking throughout the day and what our predominant thoughts are, when it manifests into the physical, we're like, wait a minute, where did this come from? And you're like, you literally have been thinking about this all day long. Like it's been popping in and out of your existence, in and out of your brain. Little signs have been around before the manifestation came about. We just are not taught to treat it that way. We're taught that things just happen on a whim or on a whim. It's like, I had to show somebody this weekend. Yeah. I actually taught a young girl, like 17. Yeah, she's like 17. My first time meeting her this past Sunday. And she was struggling with something related to relationships. And I said, okay, I'm going to teach you something that's going to change the way that you think about your life, and it's going to help you for the rest of your life. What were you thinking like 48 hours before what happened? She was like, well, something in my brain was telling me that so and so did this and so did that. And I was like, okay. And was that true? She was like, I mean, it came out that it was true, but not fully. I was like, that's how you manifest. You literally manifested that situation. And she was like, I mean, you're right, because even up to the point of me finding out that it happened, whatever happened to her, I was still thinking it. And I was like, and it was a dominant thought because you have a belief about yourself that you can't trust friendships. She's like, I do feel like I can't trust friendships. I was like, it's a dominant belief, and it's easy to undo, and takes a little bit of practice, but with a little bit of resilience towards the resistance, and allowing yourself to ride the waves. Because I will tell you, can't even tell you how many times it's happened, when you're programming new beliefs in your brain, the old ones will create tidal waves. The old thoughts will create tidal waves. The old scenarios will create tidal waves because it wants your attention the most. It's safe there. It knows that you're going to get trampled, but it knows that you can survive it. So naturally, your brain will be like, send that tidal wave out. Show them that what they were saying before, we found enough proof that that's true. And it's not. It's whatever you want it to be will be true. So I've trained my brain now. It takes practice. And the techniques that I use to get myself back to that baseline zero once I get over the waves is emotional regulation. Nervous system regulation is really big. I'll do cold showers, like cold showers, or cold ice packs on my neck or on my neck, the front back of my neck, the front of my forehead, the top of your head will produce a whole lot more heat than naturally possible or naturally necessary, especially if you're going through one of those emotional waves, I call them. So emotionally regulating, if you feel up to it, I tell people to meditate for about 5 minutes, do breath work for about 5 minutes, pause, take a walk, anything to stop that tidal wave from creating that tsunami, because it could. And then you'll spiral and you get out of control and you think that this is the truth, and your brain is like, see, there's proof. There's so much proof. It's not really proof. It's just your brain is looking for evidence to prove itself correct. The subconscious mind is always looking for evidence. And yeah, I say nervous system regulation is going to be your best bet and breath work. If
Oh,
you
breath work is
start with
so
that,
good
so
for,
important.
yeah.
So
So if you Google it, because I always tell people like, I know that you can't believe everything on the internet. I totally get that. Hi. But I know for sure that when you are in something, whatever it is, I'm like, just Google it and see what you can find out. So, like with breath work, if you look it up, it says like it helps to calm your involuntary system or your involuntary functions.
yes,
Even like I Googled it and it says, it controls physiological changes that occur, like lower blood pressure, your heart rate, reduces stress levels, hormones in the blood. So it's all even things that are just mental, things that you can't see affecting the things that are right here, the physical, the us. So I think the breath work, that's a phenomenal one because that's going to help you to gain that control, that emotional stability.
and that usually happens. It's actual chemical response that happens in our body. Scientifically, if you want to add it into there, it's something that happens to our body when we're creating new neural pathways of new thoughts. It's disrupting like constant rhythm of thoughts. So could you think of it like the wave? Like it's going to send a tsunami when it feels like, hey, this wave is different. This ripple is different. Why, you're used to thinking negatively. Now you're thinking positive. Now we have dopamine releasing when we were just releasing oxytocin. Like this is really strange for us. Your brain's building these new neural pathways. And what happens is that your body's going to feel those sensations, nervousness, tight breath, reactiveness, nervousness. It's going to create these scenarios to send a signal like, hey, something is different now. And that's all it is. It really is. It's a GPS, it's a temperature, if you will. It says something different is happening internally. You can't physically see it because it's mental first, and then your body receives the signal. The signal is sent out to the universe, to your 3D experience to find evidence for that. And if I can break
Yeah,
that down, I'm trying to break that
yeah,
down for people so that when you're in the process of manifesting, you're able to allow those waves to crash against you because now you understand that you're taking a different path. So let it crash, let it do its thing, cry it out if you need to. I know that there's a lot of coaches that are like, don't cry, don't emotionally react, don't this, don't that. It's like, you can't tell people that we're humans having human experiences and it's part of the package. It's like, you're going to cry at least once in your life. So I allow myself to have those emotions and I give myself, if it's something that's really big, like for me, something big will be relationships because I value relationships very, very much. It's something that's very dear to my heart. So when it comes to the relationship aspect, let's say, if something is going like in chaos for me, I will usually allow myself to feel whatever I'm feeling. It's meant to surface in my body and kind of tell me where it is that I'm feeling these emotions and where it's stored up. I allow it to release itself. I detach from it, meaning I won't attach my name to the sensation or the feeling that I'm having of the emotion. And I do this thing, like I said, I don't know if I mentioned it last time, I call it layering, where we'll peel the layers back down so that it's just a sensation in your body and then it's released. And it's like, oh, that was just stored up energy that needed to surface and be removed because there needs to be space for what's going to fill it next. And once I started doing this, once I started to allow that space for me to just cry it out, girl, sometimes you need 48 hours. Sometimes give yourself grace because you need a day or two to recover. But the key in manifestation in anything mental health is this is something that I tell my son. It's like, you're allowed to visit Sad Town, but we're not staying. We're not
mm,
staying. We're visiting. Whatever you have packed that you have brought to Sad Town, you leave it. You don't pack again. You don't pack that suitcase back again, baby. You get in the car and you go. You don't look back because it's gone now. It's in the past. You left it in the past. And using that terminology has helped both myself and my son because he's very sensitive to his empathy. Oh, he's such an empath too. But he'll sometimes will get super, super nervous or super, super confused or, he's a child, he's growing into a big boy. So I'll be like, are you feeling an emotion? He's like, yes. And I'm like, which one? Are you feeling sadness? And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, if you need to go to Sad Town, you can go there. There's no shame. Go there, but remember what? He's like, we're not staying. It's like, okay, we're not staying. We're visiting. Visit if you have to. It's a little pit stop. You're on a long journey. You're on the road, but get up and get out. When you're done, get up and get out. You don't
Yeah.
take anything with you. And I teach that to my basically everybody that listens to me because I'm like, if a child could understand it, then you can understand. So, are you smarter than a fifth grader? Sometimes. Just their math is crazy.
Yeah, that helps a lot because for me, I'll do the same thing. I'll say, oh, especially if I'm like something really gets me mad or angry or whatever, something is gonna draw like an emotion that I know I don't want or like take me
It's
down a
like,
path I really don't want. I'm like, all right, Aileen, I'm gonna be mad today. I'm gonna be mad today. I'm gonna let it happen today. Tomorrow is a different day. Tomorrow is gonna be a better day. And I know, a week from now, 2 days from now, a month from now, a year from now, I'm not even going to think about this thing that happened.
right.
It's going to be so irrelevant in the grand scheme of my life that I don't want to give it more
Yeah,
emotion or stress or energy or whatever than it deserves. So obviously, the faster you can do it, like some people can do it, I heard in 5 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever, and that's great and phenomenal. But whatever it is for you at that time in that stage of your life, it's like just work on shortening that, and it definitely gets better. And then rather having to like schedule it like, all right, on Thursday for 15 minutes, I'm going to be mad about this thing. Because I've seen that too, where people say scheduling the time to be really frustrated. Hmm?
yes, I've seen that too. I've seen
I've
like
seen that.
manifestation coaches doing that. And I'm
The
like,
only thing I don't care for that one for is because you're setting aside in the future to relive something in the past that you don't like. And that's the part where I'm like, no, let's just do it now. Let's just have those feelings now, be upset about it now, and then remind ourselves that the truth of today is not the truth of tomorrow. And I think
absolutely.
I think that's one of the most important pillars of, manifestation and just, neuroplasticity and everything in general is that once you know that changes are available and possibly inevitable based on if you let it be inevitable, then nothing is permanent. And then it's okay for you to say, well, you know what, this thing happened, or I'm in this state of mind right now, or I'm frustrated, I didn't get this job, or I didn't get this, or this relationship happened like this, whatever my life is going on, blah, blah, blah. I don't have this thing yet, or I'm in this lack about this. Okay, maybe you're in lack today about something, but it doesn't mean a week from now you're going to be in lack, or a month from now, or a year from now. And it's part of like just reminding yourself the truth of today is not the truth of tomorrow, and that your wish fulfiller is inevitable. So you don't need
Right.
to worry about the allowing the unfolding. And I think when you do that, maybe it helps to remind ourselves faster when we do catch ourselves mental bullying ourselves saying, well, I don't have that job, or I don't have that income, or I don't have that thing. But then saying, no, it's not that I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm still learning how to do that role to get that job. Or maybe I just haven't found the right job yet. Or maybe like the right job hasn't aligned with me yet, or the right relationship is not, I don't want just any relationship. I want a good one. And that good one is over here. It's not here yet, but it's so good that it's waiting or something, like kind of coming up with that instead of constantly telling ourselves, oh, I'm not good enough, or oh, that didn't happen the way I wanted to, or something like that.
Yeah. And it's funny that you said just piggyback off of that. There are times where I call it like mini triggers. I will trigger myself
Mm.
and not on purpose. So I don't do it necessarily on purpose, but I notice that it'll happen around the time where I'm neglecting my own needs first. And I think we forget to do that as people. I think we
Mm.
are so focused on getting, doing. We forget that we have basic needs that need to be satisfied, and we can't rely on anybody else to satisfy those things. So when it comes to like the manifestations and law of assumption and everything, a lot of people reach this feeling of frustration and they're like, I don't understand why I'm not getting results and I'm wavering and I wasn't wavering. You're literally you're putting so much energy and power into you actually working doing the manifestation, the techniques, the affirmations, that you're forgetting that you are the creator and that you need to refocus and you probably need a nap and you won't waver, or you probably need food because you're starving yourself because you're so worried about the manifestation. You're so worried about and consumed about what am I thinking and are they in alignment or am I, you're so worried. The worry is where your state is being. Instead of you taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself, giving yourself, love, taking yourself out to go get like an ice cream or go get yourself, watch a movie, something. Do something for yourself that satisfies you because it'll take the edge off of you manifesting. And I wish I would have known that earlier because had I done that earlier and started to really incorporate that self love or that, giving myself the attention that I really needed, like feeding myself, getting proper sleep, drinking water, even. Like we forget to do these things because we're the parents, we're the wives, we're the sisters, we're the caretakers, we're the healers, we're the lovers, we're everything else to everybody else but to ourselves. And our inner self is like, I want to give you those things, but I can't even focus on that because I'm starving. And you don't even
That's a
realize.
100% girl. And the
But
crazy thing is, like you said, like your parent, it's like I don't have kids, but I have parents and I see what they do. I see how they take care of themselves. I see how they talk to people. I see how they treat this and that and the other. Like we're constantly watching. Just because you're an adult doesn't mean you stop watching your parents. You know, like with you, your kids are watching you. Same for you. And it's kind of like when you're not at your, it's like parents want to be at their peak for their kids because they're like, oh, my kids come first. And I hate when they say that. I'm like, no, you got to come first because if you're 100%, your kids are going to see that. And then they're getting 100% best version of you. They're not getting the 80%. They're not getting 100% of the 80% you have available because you haven't taken care of yourselves because you're too busy trying to take care of everybody else. You take care of yourself first, then it's easier for the kids to see you saying, oh, this is how you take care of yourself. And then this is all the other stuff. And she still takes care of us and we all survive and everything happens and da 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 da. Like,
it's funny because I find like, I don't know how this is in other countries or even other, places of the world, but I know like in our society here in the States, we really look down on women that pour into themselves. And I feel like we're supposed to wear all these hats. We're supposed to be all these things. But God forbid a woman takes time out and like fully does her hair, her makeup, or her nails, and keeps up with her lashes, and takes herself out for coffee dates and thinks so highly of herself. It's almost frowned upon. But then if you're a mom that's down 4 coffees, is exhausted, cursing and screaming at your kids, or yelling at your spouse because you're stressed or over not sleeping enough, and then you're depressed, then you're looked at like the enemy too. So it's like,
or like you're normal. They kind of normalize it too and make it seem like, oh, well, that's just normal. You're crazy because you're normal, or you're angry and like you're bitter because it's normal. So it's more
supposed to be. And it's like,
yes, girl, yes, 100%.
And it's like, why can't, and then we're forced sometimes, it's like, if depending on what kind of scenarios we pick for ourselves. Like some women pick men that are great providers. Some, they don't have the tools to know that they deserve better, and they pick ones that aren't, and that they get like financially abused too. So then it's like they have to be triple. They have to be every single thing. And those women are the ones that they look the oldest. And I don't want to look, pinpoint on people's old, like, but they look the oldest. They're more inclined to health problems. They're more inclined to mental health issues and being hospitalized for those, or being on medications, or being pushed into mental hospitals because of that, or they're labeled as crazy, or they're labeled as, insufficient as a parent or whatnot. They're the ones who are always getting some kind of shit thrown at them. And it's because society is not built to take care of women anymore. We're not built to, it's like the women are the caretakers. Just throw it to them. Stepmoms have it too, where I see there's children from a previous marriage, and dad is like, I gotta go to work. Here you go. And it's like, some women that don't have kids are like, I don't have children. And now I'm a mom. And now I'm a parent. And now I don't even know how to parent myself. And so it's this vicious cycle that I've noticed. And I really teach my women the women in my courses, and some of the men too, like I've gotten them to kind of be like, hey, be a little bit more loving and kind and caring to the women, because we have to do a lot to be just a bare minimum.